Snake, wait here. I'll get a medic.
Enough! Stop this pointless fighting! This is no war!
Welcome one and all to my penultimate episode in my Metal Gear chronology. After experiencing Snake's adventures both solid and naked, amongst others we reach the end of the twins as they culminate the rivalry into one last epic battle. But I get ahead of myself. With the dawn of a new console generation, it saw Hideo return to Solid Snake in an attempt to close off the terrible story of the sons of the Patriots and of Big Boss. And in doing so he went full on obfuscated story mode. Not too unsurprising when you are trying to tie up so many story threads, loose ends and character traits in one game. It is crammed to the rafters with series nods, character cameos and self-references. If the previous games acknowledged the fourth wall, in this fourth entry, no bricks are left standing. Trying to simplify the story and condense it down into a single synopsis is pretty much impossible, as it has so many branches it might as well be an oak tree, but I will give it a high level overview. If I was to delve into the lore and each section in any depth, this would be a dedicated series of videos all on its own. Solid is now looking much older and more fragile as we meet him, 5 years after the Big Shell incident and nearly 10 years after Shadow Moses, but still looking for answers just a little closer to home. The biggest one being why he has aged so fast and how long does he actually have left. But more pressing, and in keeping with the series, is just one last mission, a state mirrored perfectly by Hideo's own constant, "This is my last Metal Gear game," he needs to complete before he can rest. Snake is given more motivation by this being a hit on his own brother Liquid. Resurrected via his right arm merged with Ocelot, yes, not the series' high point and plot device, but explained away here as Ocelot's own hypnotherapy projection, and now hell-bent on bringing down the Patriots' control via the AI and PMC forces. Creating his own sons and following in the footsteps of his father, creating a sanctuary in Outer Haven. No, not heaven, that was already trademarked. The mission, should he choose to accept it, is to find him and finally end Big Boss's genes from continuing, and this includes Snake himself. But it would not be Metal Gear without some extra layers of plot, politics, huge conspiracies, double jeopardy, love, death, betrayal, confusion and cleavage. In such a long arcing story, it comes as no surprise that it sometimes buckles under its own weight. Being a fan service from its inception, it certainly had much to answer for, and with appearances of Campbell back in play, Otacon is a given, as who else could pound your small bones to death, but we really get the full itinerary of Metal Gear lore and characters here. Naomi appears and surprisingly asks for the help of Snake, clearly flashing some skin, helps Snake forget all about the fact she betrayed him last time with a bit of fox dye poisoning. She is accompanied by her new fancy man Vamp, keeping his undead roots going, as pale as ever but still trying to get that perfect headshot for his portfolio right. But this is but small fry compared to the entire cast list as the game unfolded before you. Some feel more relevant than others. Meryl shows that the years and PS3 power have been kinder to her than Snake. Such a stark shot between the one of the highlights of the PS1 games here against the new PS3 version. Sadly, in all that time she never saw fit to change her hairstyle. Such a military thing to do. Joined by her new nanomachines and sync team, she has become a strong and grizzled veteran now, with her saving Snake this time. The ever-present change and reinvent theme. Big Momma is one of the more displaced characters to appear, giving Eva a close that, although in keeping, does nothing to improve her character or the ever so slightly disturbing fascination with Big Boss. I really like your top. The recreation of the bike crash scene just adds to the feeling it is trying a little bit too hard, but it's beaten by Mei Ling, previously a data analyst, now captain of a US Navy battleship. Throw in Rose as a psychiatrist, now moved in with Roy Campbell, could even have the most hardened fans scratching their head. But this is not the complete list or the most relevant, as Raiden is here to lend a hand, or two, in the battle of battles as it is played out across some war-torn areas as the game's core message of sense unfolds throughout the story. Taking place in a civil war inflicted countries and its casualties, the bosses are all trapped and child tormented women that have undergone the most tragic and barbaric experiences that have driven them mad. Again, a consistency shared with the recruits of Big Boss in Metal Gear Solid 5, as he builds his own heaven and soldier refuge. It continues on this twist and turn, taking us from a conflict in the Iraq opener, heavy skirmish in South America, some detective 40s noir action in Eastern Europe, but its high point and real chills moment comes from its return to Shadow Moses, and where the twin battle all began. This section, as you get to play a fully recreated PS1 version of the game, is superb and feels great, but is bettered still by the original model appearing in the opening cinematic, which can also be used in the game and again the game's all real-time cutscenes. It really delivers and is the point when the game and story all gel and feel cohesive from this point onwards. It feels like a true Metal Gear Solid game, but the self-flagellation continues, ranging from swap disk prompts, controller port nonsense, and even Hideo's own protection service. Brilliant. Stealth is less key in the game. Now being within a real war-torn land was a key part of his design. This comes across throughout the game. Knowing what we know now about 5, you can see the direction the series was going in. Its range of weapons is far more vast and really allows you to tool up. Continuing his ever-constant film influence from the Brad Pitt comic stooge Johnny to the wedding talk mid-gunfight of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Here, Drebin, aka Frank from Naked Gun, is on hand to launder your found guns and sell you newer and badder weapons. No thong song, but we learn that pop is bad for you and cannot be consumed without much belching. Controls are much better than previous games for shooting, helped by its full first-person option including movement and shoot, but third-person and camera is better now, with it being a fully freely controlled one, unlike previous games, aside the updated Snake Eater release. Controls can be clumsy at times though. Auto-lock is pretty much intrusive and causes issues when playing. It's much better and more precise to just turn off. This change in style does help push the game away from its core stealth option. Now conflicts can be successful even if you have a small army coming after you. This is amplified by having a good portion of on-rails sections that turns up the crazy, and also shows off this new action-orientated moments in the game. It also helps add in more gameplay that may have been just a cinematic prior, but by no means does the game not have them. Boy, no. A circle of danger now helps to point you in the direction of danger and possible detection. The Solid Eye gives you a map complete with pulse to show how much noise you are making. The MK2 bot can be used to scout out a path and reduce danger, but bar a gecko kill and door opening section, it is mostly left unused and unloved. Graphically, even though Hideo was openly disappointed and frustrated with the PS3, it never really hampered him or his team in delivering the goods. 7 years old, but even now it not only looks and sounds great.
The purpose of this battlefield control system is to control IDs. It fits in with their plans perfectly.
But it also has one of the cleanest anti-aliasing solutions of the generation, using a temporal AA solution that is helped due to its art style and colour palette. Borrowing from its own Metal Gear Solid 2 game art, the engine is an evolution of the one that powered the 2 previous PS2 games. Like that game, most of the world is much less organic, with the steel blues and army fatigue design offering up a much cleaner and angular look, and it adds very much to its clean IQ. Small concessions do show though, with low resolution DOF resolve at points even for the PS3, or quite a few low bit textures used with clear banding showing in some areas. Trilinear filtering is used to clean up the textures at oblique angles. But the AA worked well, especially in the cutscenes, as the camera and character movement can be controlled, and by heck there is enough of them, and it's slower. Occasionally in fast movements you can see its sample rate inadequate to keep the edges in check, but overall it works superbly well in conjunction with the art style to deliver a very impressively clean display for a native 1280 by 720 game. Sadly, texture works and alpha effects are the ones that go untouched, and they can give you quite a lot of shimmer and points and does ruin the IQ in certain sections, especially with heavy overdraw foliage and grass. Motion blur is worked into the game very sparingly, mostly in the on-rail sections on the character, and a very good implementation it is, not looking bad for even now-gen games. Sadly not greatly present in gameplay, but for the cinematics it looks great and really adds to the sheer wow it had then, and even now at times it can look incredibly impressive with its DOF touch as well. Sometimes the motion blur can be too strong and its shaky cam style can grate somewhat, but as always Kojima Productions really knows how to deliver on its cinematic styling. The game even has its own channel you can flick through. Hideo gets not one, but 2 channels all to himself. Typical Kojima-san. Another reason it impresses is its use of light and material work, although now it does come across as overly glossy with heavy use of specular reflectance and cube maps giving walls, floors and faces and metals an aggressive shiny look, with the latex suits of the octopus all looking sufficient enough to pass as early PBR work. But elsewhere it never convinces as well, aside the huge wealth of metal objects in the game. Animation of characters and Snake in particular is much better, with far more traditional frames of movement for each action, although it never equals the work achieved in its motion capped cinematics, which, staying true with Hideo and his first delivered Kojima Productions game, now sadly disbanded, are all real time, and where the game and engine impresses the most, but they never feel sufficiently enhanced over the actual gameplay, which helps the game deliver on its aim of making you care about its cast, and a huge one that it has. But in-game it's not lacking, with a good spread of design from the war-torn streets with the Iraq opener to a rather lacking South American village, but in the streets of Eastern Europe it starts to show off some more tricks. Bloom is not only walked out but whacked up to give that detective noir style, but it is in Shadow Moses that these all come together in perfect harmony in so many ways. But this shift into a more powerful machine saw an evolution of the previous engine rather than a brand new one that we now have in Fox Engine. As such, the same traits can be seen with its love of heavy overdraw and alpha effects being a key part of its arsenal. Foliage, smoke, fire, fog all actively play a part to not only add depth to a scene along with its focal controlled DOF, but also swamp the machine. In general play it holds a stable 30 FPS in play, and bar some very minor and rare occasions it never really exceeds this in play. But it can dip at points when required to overpopulate its pixels with such a large quantity of textures with its bigger action scenes. Through play you can get minor dips and stutters, with the clear traits of its PS2 engine showing its dips to 20 FPS. Solid. But it never feels a bad performer in overall play to be anything like the issues from 3. Aside the Rex escape towards the end of Act 4, which is the heaviest section of the game. Here in my stress test you can see it hitting lows of 13, but this is really working the engine and machine hard, as the entire screen is overdrawn to outer heaven and back. But cinematics are slightly different and occasionally show smaller but more obvious leaps to 60 FPS when it can, with the game not running a standard unlocked frame rate, but instead being aware of its render budget and able to adapt this as needed to alternate to a VSync rate as most appropriate, seeing the clear run from 16, 33 and 50 milliseconds as this happens dynamically. Like the previous games, it runs a full VSync, so no tearing happens in the game, allowing it to present a clean frame as often as it can. Again, a real testament to the technical skill at Kojima Productions on a solid engine that powered through 1.5 generations of console and PC, now replaced with the latest Fox engine. A key part of the design team is the conservative use of topology meshes, an area key in all the games. Not going mad on vertices and instead using a good mix of composite texture work for normals, decals etc. gives a much better display, even if at times these can have some obvious errors compounded by artifacts from the low resolution shadow maps in cinematics. But the game largely returned to a more solid and persistent performer, far more in line with Hideo's prior works. This iconic stage from Metal Gear Solid 1 is faithfully and lovingly recreated here, with heavy alpha work on snowdrifts blinding you. Snow and crystallized water can be seen on your suit. These are all rendered at the more standard half resolution resolve, but blend well with only traces seen on edges of the lower quality against Snake's leg here, for example. The frosty air even puffs up and away as you walk through it, a nice touch. But the nostalgia is real and is only perfected with that music from the end theme playing as you walk into that opening pad. Shivers.
D. What's a Russian gunship doing here?
Wow, you must be crazy to fly high in this kind of weather.
Who's bad.
Nice to meet you, Snake. It's an honor to speak to a living legend like yourself.
In an even greater nod to the first game, you can even play with the head model of Snake from Metal Gear Solid 1. What other way can it really be played? And not only here does the incredible art style and technical tricks of the engine shine, but it's also where the game as a whole comes together and feels right. Prior to this, many scenes and story all felt very jumbled and almost shoehorned, but here, with some parts taken care of, it all starts to gel, with it being the standout act, for me at least, aside what is a dramatic, emotive and damn right epic finale. It really was and is a fitting end to such a hero.
I'm no hero. Never was. I'm just an old killer, hired to do some wet work.
Sorry, Snake. Well, at least a hero to many of us. It is just the ending that had fans feeling a little disappointed or unhappy, and I myself fall into that disappointed side, as I hoped for a more gritty and fitting end than what we got. But the bow was tied neatly enough for everyone to really enjoy the present. It serves as a poignant example of how his humour and style can be awkward at times. Akiba the comic stooge is funny at first, but quickly grates as an extreme nerd that obviously was not nanoed up. Some of the shots and scenes have an almost fetish style to them, but this is in keeping with his agent provocateur methods. AI can be clunky at times and get in the way, never leaping on as much as the rest of the game's presentation, and highlighting how good the last generation was. Japanese style and character design comes through though. Snake himself looks more Japanese now with his new moustache. Ocelot now looks a lot like a Yakuza boss or escaped extra from Tekken. Well, Virtua Fighter, as the nod to the Metal Gear Solid 1 right through the franchise, becomes a full-on 3D fighter. But it is more so in this Samurai Raiden and Blind Swordsman battle that set him up for his own successful spin-off in the Metal Gear universe, now becoming a far more amiable character with more depth and angst, along with his own fair share of demons. It can be a little self-indulgent in its exposition, both with quantity and length of cutscenes and its lingering editing. Story is a mess at times, far too much political webs and double, triple jeopardy for its own good. Hideo is superb in that he can really defy genres and rules, throwing a solid FPS controller, a 3D fighter, a 40s noir detective explorer. Where else could you get all this but from Hideo? Comedy and almost perverse fetish sections of the game feel too strong and childish at times. Along with the epilogue section, which is over an hour long, can also feel a little out of place for some and is love and hate with Big Boss returning. But ultimately it was a fitting end to such an iconic character that shaped a generation and more of games and gamers. One that which we have the joy to enjoy in 2 weeks' time, as we get to see just how Big Boss became such a villain after all. Or did he? Join me next week for the last episode as we look into the meat of the Snake Eater and Phantom Pain sandwich that is Peace Walker and Ground Zeroes. As always, if you guys and girls enjoyed this, then please hit the like and subscribe button and tell all your friends. Please leave your thoughts and feedback below. I really appreciate each and every one of you that does. I'll leave Snake and Ocelot to say my goodbyes as you guys and girls take care, and I'll see you very soon on the next one.
With darkness and silence through the night.
It's not over yet.
You're pretty good. Pretty good.